Russia has just changed the game, and Ukraine's most trusted defense system is struggling to keep up. While the world has watched Ukraine successfully shoot down wave after wave of Russian attacks, something fundamental has shifted on the battlefield.
Katie, thank you, of course, for all of that analysis. We really appreciate it. You can hear more of that from Katie Simpson tonight on Power and Politics. She'll be hosting that coming up at 5 p.m. But there we have it. Donald Trump walking down the steps there of Air Force One as he gets set to meet the Russian President Vladimir Putin. This will be their 7th known face-to-face meeting. And all of this, of course, coming at a pivotal time for both of these leaders, for Ukraine, for Europe. So much riding on this meeting, and I do believe we are also now seeing the Russian President Vladimir Putin emerging and walking down that staircase. Interesting timing there, both of them coming out and coming down those staircases at the same time, even though Air Force One has been on the tarmac now for a little bit of time. So I'm wondering, control room, if there's any sound here, if we could even listen in for just a couple of seconds. Apparently there's no sound yet. Once there is, we'll bring that to you. Okay, so just a little bit of sound of both of those engines right now as these two men, it would appear, both walking down that red carpet right now. You can assume towards each other. We know that there is a platform at the end there that they'll be walking up to. We saw them vacuuming that platform just a short time ago in anticipation of this moment. It has now been nearly a decade since Russian President Vladimir Putin has been on U.S. soil. Of course, this is significant that it is happening.
The change comes at a critical moment. World leaders are scrambling to address the Ukraine crisis, with diplomatic efforts intensifying across the globe. European capitals are hosting urgent meetings, and military strategists are reassessing their assumptions about modern warfare. The implications of what's happening now extend far beyond Ukraine's borders. Russia's ballistic missiles are no longer flying the way they used to, and Ukraine's vaunted American-made Patriot systems, the gold standard of air defense, are having serious trouble adapting. We're not talking about a minor tactical adjustment here. This is a complete reimagining of how ballistic missiles operate, and it's creating nightmares for Ukrainian air defense commanders who've relied on Patriots to protect their cities and critical infrastructure. To understand why this matters so much, we need to look at what made the Patriot system so effective in the first place. The MIM-104 Patriot surface-to-air missile system has been Ukraine's ace in the hole against Russian ballistic missile attacks since the beginning of this war. The American-made Patriot has long been Ukraine's best defense against Russian ballistic missiles. These aren't just any missiles we're talking about. Russia has been throwing everything at Ukraine, including the domestically produced 9K-720 Iskander, the air-launched Kh-47M2 Kinjal, and North Korea's KN-23. The Patriot system was designed to calculate exactly where these incoming missiles would be based on their predictable ballistic trajectories, then launch interceptors to destroy them mid-flight. But here's where things get terrifying for Ukraine. Russia has been upgrading its ballistic missiles, giving them more maneuverability and creating new challenges for Ukraine's vaunted American-made Patriot air defense systems, according to a U.S. Defense Intelligence assessment. A special report published this week by the Department of Defense Office of Inspector General said that the Ukrainian Air Force has struggled to consistently use its Patriot systems to intercept Russian ballistic missiles due to recent tactical improvements that Moscow made to the weapons. This isn't Ukrainian propaganda or Russian boasting. This is coming straight from U.S. Defense Intelligence. The specifics of these improvements are genuinely revolutionary. These improvements to the weapons include enhancements that enable their missiles to change trajectory and perform maneuvers rather than flying in a traditional ballistic trajectory. Think about what this means for a moment. Traditional ballistic missiles follow a predictable arc. They go up, they come down, and sophisticated systems like the Patriot can calculate exactly where they'll be at any given moment. But now, Russian missiles are actively maneuvering during flight, completely throwing off those calculations.
Thanks, Shivan. Let's unpack everything we know so far. Now let's take a look at the 9M730 Burevest missile, which NATO has dubbed as SSC-X9 Skyfall. Now, according to reports, the Burevestnik is a nuclear-powered cruise missile. It is designed to carry a nuclear warhead, boasting an impressive range of over 23,000 kilometers. Well, one of its key features is that its ability to fly at low altitudes, making it challenging for radar systems to detect and intercept. Well, reports claim that the missile's stealth capabilities are designed to evade early warning sensors and missile defenses first tested in 2016. The Burevestnik faced significant challenges, including a poor test record with only 2 partial successes out of 13 known tests since 2016, as reported by the Nuclear Threat Initiative. Now, experts believe that if successfully developed, the Burevestnik could significantly alter the global nuclear power dynamic, providing Russia with an edge over others.
The technological leap Russia has achieved represents more than just an incremental improvement. These missiles now incorporate advanced propulsion systems that allow for mid-flight course corrections, sophisticated guidance systems that can adjust targeting in real time, and countermeasures specifically designed to defeat Western interception methods. The combination of these technologies has created a new class of threat that existing defense systems weren't designed to handle. Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson Yuri Ihnat has been remarkably candid about what this means on the ground. The flight of a ballistic missile along such a quasi-ballistic trajectory, when the missile doesn't just fly in a straight line like it's falling, but actually performs maneuvers in flight, makes it more difficult for the Patriot system, which calculates the interception point using software, to predict exactly where the missile will be, Ihnat explained. The software that has made Patriots so effective is suddenly working against outdated assumptions about how missiles behave. The real-world impact of these upgrades is already showing up in combat statistics, and the numbers are sobering. The Defense Intelligence Agency report highlighted 2 specific Russian attacks that demonstrate this new reality. On 28 June, Ukraine intercepted only 1 of 7 missiles in a Russian strike. On 9 July, during the largest air attack since the start of the war, it stopped or suppressed 7 of 13 missiles. These aren't the interception rates Ukraine was seeing earlier in the conflict when Patriots were consistently successful against Russian ballistic missiles. But the trajectory changes aren't the only problem Ukraine is facing. According to Ihnat, the modified missiles are now equipped with radar decoy systems and use quasi-ballistic flight paths that make them more difficult to track and intercept using Patriot systems. Russia has essentially created a 2-pronged attack on Patriot effectiveness. The missiles not only move unpredictably, but they're also actively trying to confuse the radar systems that guide Patriot interceptors to their targets. The decoy technology isn't entirely new, but Russia appears to have significantly expanded its use. U.S. intelligence first confirmed the Iskander-M's decoy capability in March 2022, noting that these devices, ejected from the missile's base, include jammers to disrupt radar frequencies and heat sources to mislead infrared-guided missiles. What's changed is that Ihnat's comments suggest Russia may now be fitting decoys to more of them, making this advanced countermeasure technology standard rather than exceptional. The implications of this development extend far beyond Ukraine's immediate defense needs. Ukraine has previously acknowledged improvements that Russia has made to increase the maneuverability of its ballistic missiles. But the report marks a concerning assessment for the Patriot air defenses that the U.S. and many of its allies and partners also rely on for missile defense. Countries around the world have invested billions of dollars in Patriot systems based on their proven effectiveness against traditional ballistic missile threats. If Russia has found a way to consistently defeat Patriots, that changes the entire calculus of modern air defense.
I told my colleagues and the United States President and my European friends that Putin doesn't want peace. He wants to occupy our country.
And while Zelensky was skeptical, Keir Starmer was more upbeat, praising the US president as he led a meeting of the coalition of the willing.
The concern among military leaders worldwide is palpable. Nations that have long relied on Patriot systems as their primary defense against ballistic, IC missile threats are now questioning whether their defenses remain adequate. The possibility that adversaries could replicate Russia's technological advances has sparked urgent reviews of defense strategies from Seoul to Riyadh. The strategic timing of these improvements is particularly concerning. Russia didn't develop these capabilities overnight. They've been systematically working to counter Western air defense systems while fighting in Ukraine. Poltgen Kyrylo Budanov, head of Ukraine's Defense Intelligence Directorate, GUR, separately told TWZ in June that Russia had worked with the North Koreans to improve the KN-23's effectiveness, particularly in terms of accuracy. This suggests a coordinated effort between Russia and its allies to develop countermeasures specifically designed to defeat Western air defense systems. North Korea's involvement adds another layer of complexity to this problem. North Korea has supplied the Kremlin with around 250 ballistic missiles since last autumn, according to Ukraine's military intelligence. Reports from Ukrainian air defense forces indicate that Russia used North Korean KN-23 missiles in 6 out of 9 ballistic attacks on Ukraine in May. The KN-23 missile system has its own advanced capabilities, including reportedly can perform a pull-up maneuver in its terminal phase, making it even more difficult to intercept. The scale of Ukraine's Patriot inventory makes this problem even more critical. Ukraine has received 3 Patriot batteries from the United States, 2 from Germany, 1 from Romania, and another jointly supplied by Germany and the Netherlands. That's a total of 7 Patriot batteries protecting an entire country under constant missile attack. When those systems start struggling with interception rates, there's no backup plan that's nearly as effective. Ukraine's dependence on Patriots for ballistic missile defense is almost total. But despite ingenuity in domestic weapon production over the past 3 years, Ukraine has no homemade equivalent to the Patriot, a US-made surface-to-air missile system whose latest iterations are uniquely good at stopping ballistic missiles in flight. While Ukraine has developed impressive capabilities for shooting down drones and cruise missiles, it still needs the Patriot missiles and systems to intercept ballistic missiles, said the senior Ukrainian intelligence official. The human cost of reduced Patriot effectiveness is already becoming apparent. Already in 2025, dozens of civilians have been killed in Russian ballistic missile attacks. On Palm Sunday, in mid-April, 35 civilians were killed and 113 INJ. You read in a strike on the northeastern city of Sumy. These are the kinds of attacks that Patriots were supposed to prevent, and their reduced effectiveness is directly translating into civilian casualties. The technical challenge Russia has created goes to the heart of how modern air defense systems work. Ballistic missiles are among the toughest challenges that any air defense system faces. They fly in high parabolas far from the Earth's surface, coming down at several times the speed of sound to strike their targets. Intercepting ballistic missiles in their flight paths requires precision, both in detection of incoming missiles and in the launch and targeting of outgoing air defense missiles. When Russia adds unpredictable maneuvers and electronic countermeasures to missiles that are already flying at hypersonic speeds, the interception problem becomes exponentially more difficult. The global implications of this development are staggering. According to Raytheon, an RTX company that manufactures the Patriot system, 19 countries have purchased the weapon, and there are more than 250 Patriot fire units around the world. Tom Laliberty, Raytheon's president of land and air defense systems, told Defense News in a recent interview the U.S. owns 85-90 of those, with the rest distributed among the other 18 customer countries. If Russia's upgrades prove consistently effective against Patriots, every one of these countries needs to reconsider their air defense strategies. The supply problem makes Ukraine's situation even more desperate. Amid worldwide demand and slow production of Patriot missiles, few countries are willing to send more to Ukraine. Even if Patriots were still maintaining their earlier interception rates, Ukraine would be struggling to maintain adequate stockpiles. With reduced effectiveness requiring more missiles per successful interception, the math becomes impossible. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been blunt about the supply constraints. The main additional military aid Ukraine has requested from the Trump administration is more Patriot missiles and launchers, which, frankly, we don't have, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said during a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing. This isn't a matter of political will, it's a matter of physical inventory. Russia's missile improvements represent more than just a tactical advantage. They're reshaping the fundamental assumptions of modern warfare. For decades, Western military planning has been built around the superiority of defensive systems like the Patriot. The idea that sophisticated air defense networks could reliably protect high-value targets from ballistic missile attacks has been central to NATO strategy and alliance security guarantees. But Ukrainian officials are trying to maintain some optimism despite these challenges. It complicates the interception, but doesn't make the interception impossible. Ukraine's Air Force spokesperson Yuri Inat said, "I think our partners are already working to improve the system's capabilities. The question is whether Western defense contractors can develop countermeasures to Russia's countermeasures fast enough to matter for Ukraine's current defense needs." The technological arms race that's playing out over Ukrainian skies is accelerating at an unprecedented pace. Russia's missile improvements didn't happen in isolation. They're the result of real-time learning from thousands of missile attacks against sophisticated Western air defense systems. Every failed interception teaches Russian engineers something new about how to defeat Patriots, while every successful interception teaches them what still needs to be improved. This creates a terrifying feedback loop for Ukraine. As Russian missiles become more sophisticated, Patriots become less effective, which means more missiles get through to their targets, which gives Russia more data about Patriot vulnerabilities, which leads to even more sophisticated missiles. Breaking this cycle requires either dramatically more Patriot missiles and systems or entirely new approaches to ballistic missile defense. The broader strategic implications extend well beyond Ukraine's borders. If Russia has genuinely found a reliable way to defeat Patriot systems, that changes the military balance not just in Eastern Europe, but globally. Countries that have relied on Patriot systems for their defense against ballistic missile threats, from South Korea facing North Korean missiles to Gulf states facing Iranian missiles, suddenly find themselves much more vulnerable than they believed. What makes this development particularly concerning is that Russia isn't keeping these improvements to itself. The collaboration with North Korea on missile technology suggests that Russia is willing to share its countermeasures with allies and partners. This means that the techniques Russia has developed for defeating Patriots could spread to other adversaries of the United States and its allies. The timing couldn't be worse for Ukraine. Just as Russia is deploying more effective missiles, Ukraine's access to additional Patriot systems and interceptors is becoming more constrained. The combination of improved Russian capabilities and limited Ukrainian resources creates a window of vulnerability that Russia is clearly trying to exploit. For now, Ukraine is adapting as best it can. Air defense commanders are learning to work with reduced Patriot effectiveness, potentially using multiple interceptors per incoming missile or combining Patriots with other air defense systems to create layered protection. But these are expensive solutions that Ukraine can't sustain indefinitely without massive increases in Western support. The ultimate question is whether this represents a temporary Russian advantage that Western technology will soon overcome, or a fundamental shift in the balance between offensive missiles and defensive systems. If it's the latter, the implications for global security are profound. The entire post-Cold War security architecture has been built on the assumption that defensive systems could reliably protect against ballistic missile attacks. If that assumption is no longer valid, everything from alliance commitments to nuclear doctrine may need to be reconsidered. What's certain is that the battle over Ukrainian skies has become a testing ground for the future of warfare. The lessons being learned, both by Russia about defeating Western air defenses and by the West about countering advanced missile threats, will shape military technology and strategy for decades to come. For Ukraine, caught in the middle of this technological arms race, the stakes couldn't be higher. Every missile that gets through represents not just a tactical defeat, but potentially civilian lives lost and critical infrastructure destroyed. The war in Ukraine continues to evolve in ways that surprise military analysts and challenge long-held assumptions about modern warfare. Russia's missile improvements represent just the latest example of how this conflict is reshaping our understanding of 21st century military technology. As both sides continue to adapt and counter-adapt, the only certainty is that the technological arms race will continue to accelerate, with Ukraine's cities and people caught in the crossfire.